Keep going. Now, where does the drifting always take us? It takes us to a safe place, correct? When you drift, you go where? Out. Away from everything. Is every time that we start drifting. So with this here is a Guinness World Record. Someone was drifted and they were lost for 484 days. 484 days until someone found them. There's also a story too, is there's 3 fishermen on the coast of Mexico. They went to go, a small little boat, motorboat, they went to go fishing. The motor gave out. They traveled, drifted 6,500 miles until someone found them. Over a year until someone found them. And actually 2 jumped overboard, tried to swim back to shore, and they didn't make it. So drifting happens. So when do we drift in our spiritual lives? We're here, everything's great, life is great, and then what happens? We tend to drift. We stop reading the Bible. We stop coming to church. You see, and what happens, then we start drifting from where? From God. We start drifting. And the crazy thing is, if you're ever in the ocean and you don't drop your anchor, you're drifting and you don't even know it. There's a lot of us here that are drifting and we don't even know it. We're just going along. We're just going along. So part of drifting too is going to be the parts of the Bible that we like. We're pick and choosers. Okay? God gave us a commandment of the entire Bible. But yet we pick out which ones? The ones that we like. And the ones that we don't, we tend to shove underneath the rug. And so with this here, as a believer, we need something secure. We need hope in something. So as believers, this is where an anchor comes. And I love this anchor, by the way. This is where the anchor comes into effect. It's not a big anchor, but what does the anchor do? What's the purpose of an anchor? You drop it, right? If you've ever been out in the sea, you drop it. Okay? But then this is the crazy part too. If you drop it on the bed sea, what is it going to catch on to? It's going to keep on. So what is it supposed to catch on to? Say it louder. Rocks, okay? So I got a big old rocks. I bet none of y'all noticed this, did y'all? I got a bunch of rocks here. Okay? And it's heavy. These rocks here, it has to catch on to something. These rocks are going to be the promises of God. You understand, our anchor of hope right here, our rocks have to catch on to it. It has to. Otherwise, it's going to keep slipping. Part of these promises, I will never leave and forsake you. Give me your burdens, and I will give you peace. Give me the first of your fruits, and I will give it to you, shake down, pressed together, overflowing. And these are the rocks that we stand on. These are the rocks that secures our anchor, so we won't drift, so we won't go out. This is the whole purpose of the anchor. The anchor is useless without the rocks, without the promises of God. So with this here, when we have the rocks, when we have the anchor, this is the cool part where you can actually come in here. You can actually tie to your anchor as we're the ship. I can't tie it because I'm shaking. But you have it, right? And now as the ship, you can stay there. This ain't part of the sermon. Has life ever surprised you? The worst kind of news is the news that you don't expect. The worst kind of hurt is a hurt that you don't see coming. The best kind of blow from the devil is a blow that you don't see coming. And I'm speaking passionately here because, I'm looking at my mom. Have you ever got news? Have you ever got news that Your aunt's only going to have 2 hours to live. And then our faith. What happens to our faith? It breaks. See, when life gets tough, college kids, when you go out there, what's going to happen to your faith when you're tested? You see, you can have the promises and you can know the promises and you can have the anchor, but you don't have strong faith, nothing's going to happen. What you need is strong faith so you can grab on to the anchor. And it's up to you on what faith you have, because without nothing, you have to have faith. Because with faith, guess what's going to happen? With the right kind of faith, no matter what storm comes, no matter what the doctor says, nothing's going to let you go. Except that. Nothing's going to let you go. Do you understand that? Nothing's going to let it go. This is a chain. Okay? And you're going to stay on there, and you're going to stay on there. And you're going to hold on to it. Because your faith is strong. Your faith is so strong, it's going to hold on. What kind of faith do we have? What happens when the doctor diagnoses you with cancer? Are you done? What happens when the college doesn't accept you? Do you quit? Some of us, even here, our marriages. How strong is our faith within our marriage? Do we believe the promises that God say? That God, we put God first, and then our wives, then our husbands second. Do we do that? Do we believe in the promises? Do we believe in those promises? Drop the anchors to fight the temptations and hold on securely. This is the first warning, and I actually learned this from Flick because he always gives us warnings, so I feel like I have to give you a warning. This is your first warning. Acts 27:29. Fearing that we would dash against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. Fearing that we would be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. Why do we wait till the storm hits? Why do we wait to pray and talk to God when we're already in the middle of the storm? Why do we do that? I want you to understand too that for the war that is happening tomorrow, for the trials that are happening tomorrow, for the trials that are happening in a month from now, from the trials that happen next year, the planning starts now. It starts now on your knees. The war is won on your knees. The war of tomorrow, the war of next week. Graduates, you are going to go into someplace new. There's going to be temptations. There's going to be how you're going to stay disciplined. You're going to have some rough days. Pray now for when that happens. You know, we call it the 911 God. What's 911 God? Is when things get bad. God, I'm here. Remember me? I need you now. What kind of God do we serve? The war starts now. The war is won on your knees through prayer. They were fearful, so they dropped 4 anchors. 4 anchors. And you know it's pretty bad when the captain says, drop all the anchors we have and just pray. If the pilot comes over the airplane and says, pray, it's bad. Really bad. Dropped 4 anchors and prayed because they were fearful. Temptations will happen. They will happen. And then when temptation happens, we start to drift, correct? We start to drift. And then we're out here in the middle of the ocean, 6,500 miles apart, then we say what? God, where are you? Where are you? And you're lost and you're all alone, and that's exactly where Satan wants you. Because if the Satan can get you alone, that's when Satan does his best work. Let me give you examples of this. Where was David when he saw Bathsheba? On the roof, by himself. Temptation. Eve. When did Satan come and tempt Eve? When she was by herself. Potiphar's wife came in and tried to hook up with Joseph when Joseph was alone, by himself. Start praying now. Start praying now. Parents, start praying for your future son-in-law, your future daughter-in-law. Pray now for them. Pray now for them. The best way you can fight the war is to have a game plan. Be prepared before the storm happens. Be prepared before the storm happens. John 16:33 says this, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. You understand this, is that your anchor is not going to prevent problems. You know, the purpose of an anchor is to hold you firm and secure. It's not a problem preventer. It's not going to be a temptation preventer. But what it does is secures you to the promises of God is what it does. It secures you to the promises of God. You know, graduates, I ask you this. Read your Bible every day. Pray every day. Starting now. Pray every day. Believe that God will, when you go to your colleges, don't be alone. Find a group to plug into. And I'm going to throw this in there because I'm going to go there. Prom's coming. Don't go to prom alone with your date. Okay? Go with a group. Parents, do not let your kids go to prom with their date by themselves. Because that's exactly what Satan wants to do. Go with a group. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. The same thing with graduation. Okay? Plan ahead. When you go to college, plug in somewhere. Plug into a small group. Do something. And I'm going to throw another plug. This Wednesday, if you're not part of our youth group, please come Wednesday because we're actually going to talk about purity of the mind. The following week, we're going to talk about purity of the heart and the body. And that's to prepare them for prom. Because before you have purity of the body, it starts in the mind. And that's what we're teaching. So please bring your kids 6:45 on Wednesdays. So, facing temptations. And as we get to the end here, Hebrews 11:6 says this. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we don't see. And with this, I'm going to try to do some rigging here because the first part was part of the sermon, the second part wasn't. But part of the anchor and what it says is faith is unseen. You know, we're tied here and we have strong faith. But of course, you can see the anchor here and you can see the anchor grabbing onto God's promises, correct? But actually, if you've ever been out to the sea, where do you drop the anchor at? You drop it in the sea, correct? And you can't see it. All you have is what? All you can see is what? The chain. All you have is your faith. So how do you know it's working? How do you know the anchor's down there holding on to something? Because the great part is when you start trying to drift, what happens? You feel that tug. Have anybody felt that tug from God saying, no, my child, come back. I don't want you there. Have you ever had a job and you wanted this job and then guess what happens? God says, no, that job's not for you. How many of you had boyfriends or girlfriends saying, God, this is the one? And then God says, it's not the one I got planned for you. You see, sometimes we go and run forward and then it doesn't happen. And this is, if your faith is strong enough, this is what God's trying to tell you is come back. He's tugging you, come back, stay here, stay secure to me. I'm not going to let you drift. I'm not going to let you get lost. And it's all faith. How strong is your faith? How strong is your faith?